Hey, welcome to Mike's Trains, and thanks for joining me for another video. We're going to continue along. This will be the last video in this series, but we'll continue along and I'll show you what I've done. Now, I had mentioned I was going to do the roof on this building last time. I went ahead and did it and finished it because I feel like it's just sheet styrene in there. There's nothing fancy to show. Nothing complicated. So I just kind of glued it in there. The only thing I did do is the sheets of styrene that I have for this, they don't reach the whole thing. They only go to about here lengthwise. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 separate sections of the roof that I joined all together and gave me this whole thing here. And then the other thing I did on this roof was, while it was white, I glued it in, and then I took some sand. I did this in another video as well. I'll put a thing to it on the top corner of the screen up here, where I took the sand and I put a layer of like white glue, Elmer's white glue, down, and I sprinkled the sand on top, and then I airbrushed the whole roof grimy black. So that's what you see here. So now the roof is complete, and now it's time to start moving on to the awnings in the front. So why don't we turn this around and you can kind of see where we've gone, and there they are. So I started over here. Now I didn't finish them over here. I'll show you how I did those, but I started over here and I did these in this area here first, because these are the most complicated of the cuts, because these are at an angle right here and right here. None of these are a straight cut. So I wanted to get those done and out of the way. And I've also finished, if you can see, the window decals that go on here. There we go. So there's all the decals for the pet store, the cell phone store, as well as the rest of the decals that go along in these other stores. They show a little bit more when it's lit, and we'll look at that after we finish what's going on here. But what I want to do is I want to finish the last 2 sections of awning in here. So we want to finish these 2 sections, and what I have is I have the styrene sheet here, and I cut off what I thought was going to be the right length, the right height for this, the width, and I have 2 more sections of this left to go in here. But I don't know if it shows on video, but what I thought was going to be the right height on here ends up being too much. If you look at this, you can see that there's quite a difference in the height, the width of these versus this. So I need to trim these down to match and put one in there and one in there. So why don't I show you how I trim the sheet styrene, and we'll move on from there. Okay, so here's our piece of styrene that I marked, and you can see our marks right here and right here. So the way I used to do these, and it ends up not really working well, is I'll take my straight edge and I'll lay it across the 2 marks, hold it with my hands, and score this and cut it. But what happens is my hands can't put enough pressure on this to keep the knife from moving. So what I have are these small clamps, bar clamps here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on here, and I'm going to clamp it right on there. Nice and tight. Like that. And then we're going to match this one. and make sure they're good and tight. Now I'm clamping the ruler on top of the styrene so that everything is clamped down tight. Then we'll take a nice sharp blade and we just run down it. Now we have a straight cut and we're good. So now we want to set this in place. I've also painted this gray in case you hadn't noticed, and that's gonna stay like that. Okay, so now we want to mark the length. And for that, I'm not going to use a knife. I'm just going to cut it with my nippers here. Like that. I'll take that away. And we'll fit this back in. I want it to be a tight fit, but this bow here is just too much. Alright. So we're going to cut this a little more. I'm only taking a small amount off of this at a time. And that's all it takes. And then on this side here, I'm going to take some sandpaper. There's a small angle to this. It was unintentional when I built it, but I used a square on it, but obviously it moved just a small amount. We'll pull that down like that. See? Now we're all good in there. Like that. Now we can set this one into place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pad of paper right here. I'm going to put these on with CA. Take a little CA and drop that down in there. And then we just need a small micro brush. And we're going to cover all the edges. I'm going to go over all three edges. Alright, now we'll move on to the next one. This one I've already cut the width, so we'll just glue this one into place. Okay, so I think these are all glued in now. So we have all the pieces done, and this is what we've got. Now I know it looks uneven here and a little bit down at this end. I'm not going to sweat it. I think that just comes into where some of this stuff wasn't quite as accurate as I thought. I can live with it. And here's the look from the front when you're looking down. Like that. So there's the look. That's what we're going for. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to touch up all of the gray in here. I want to go along this top edge. I don't want any white showing, and along this bottom edge. And then there's a couple small chips in this that I want to touch up. Now the gray I used for this, I mixed myself, so I had to match some more. So I mixed some on paper here, and I'm just going to go through and I'm just going to touch up all those edges. And then I'm going to drag any of the color that I got on the face. I'm just going to drag it down. So if it's a little bit off in shade, it'll kind of come across as weathering to some extent. All right. So now I've done all the first run of the weathering. I just want to make sure there's no heavy paint left on there, and then when that dries, I'm going to go over that with some pastels to kind of blend it down a little more, and then we're going to call that done. So I also want to go back and I want to touch up the face of the green. Alright, so that's going to be it for that. And you can see we have weathering down all on these awnings here, and then like I said, we'll even that out with some pastels and grays and a little bit of black maybe. We'll even that out a little bit more, and that'll look fine. And then the next thing to do would be signs. So let me let this all dry and we'll come back and hit the next part. Alright, so we're back. I've let this all dry. Now you will notice that at this end here I did fix the reveal. Turns out I couldn't live with the big reveal down at this end, so I cut a new piece, and now it's pretty much even all the way across and straight down the whole thing. But what's happened is now it's a little bit further out here. I can live with that. So anyway, this is all done now. Now the next thing I want to work on are the signs I want to add to this that, you know, are going to determine what these stores are. Now I've already made these, and I used the same software that I used to make the interiors, same process as the interiors, and I mounted them. I printed everything onto sticker paper, and I added them. I stuck them to 20,000 styrene. Okay, so these are the signs that are going to go on the front of this, and I have one for every store. This is Saul's Law Office, and this is a photograph I pulled out and kind of fixed up in a photo editing program from the internet. This is the actual sign from his office. This one right here, this is the CC Mobile. Okay, that goes over the cell phone store. The Comic Center from Big Bang Theory is right here. Now this store doesn't exist in reality, and it's never been shown in the series, so there's never been a sign. So I kind of looked at their stuff, what I did find, and I kind of created this sign in that same software. And this is what I've come up with right here. Okay, and then we have Kelsey's Bar from All in the Family. This is another one that I made up because the sign doesn't exist anywhere. And then we have Jefferson Cleaners. Again, it does not exist anywhere in reality, so we made this. Some of the writing is probably not showing up, but underneath Jefferson Cleaners here it says moving on up, and then on the side here it's 7 convenient locations, which is what they pushed in the show. So I made that. And then this is the pet store for my daughter, named after her. And this is Taylor's Pet Emporium. So these are all made within the software. Now all I have to do is glue those to the front of the building here. So, and then after I mounted them to the 20,000 styrene, I painted the backs black, and I outlined the edges with a thick black Sharpie all around the edges. So let's mount these onto the building. Again, another sheet of paper from my pad. Some of the CA glue. Oh, and you'll notice I also weathered all of this awning, so it looks like it's been there for a little while. And I did that with the pastels and some sponges. I used what else did I use? After the pastels, I brushed some of this stuff down on there. It works pretty good, and I think they came out fairly decent. They might be a little further along aged than maybe I would have liked, but I think overall it's pretty good. So now we're going to get a micro brush. And we're just going to run some glue down the back of all these signs. And there we go. So that's all of the buildings. Now we actually look like a strip mall. Okay. Now there's still one thing left to do. The last thing I have to do is, you can see in the on the building here, I have a post right here, and I want to add these posts every real 3 inches. But that's a white one. So what I want to do is, I'd like to add the same thing, but I'm going to paint them gray, which is what I've done here. I have some rod, and I'm going to cut these to length and add these in here. And I'm just going to CA them in. First of all, they're going to go under each of these pieces here, and then halfway in between, because from here to here is 6 inches, from this one here to this one in, and so on from here to here, and then from the end to the center here. So one under each of these, and then one directly in the center between, and that's all I'm gonna do. And then the ones in the center here, because I don't have a strip that goes across underneath here in the front, I'm just going to cut it so it goes a little bit higher, so it kind of rides up behind this awning a little bit. That allows me to set this sidewalk into place a little bit better and not have to worry about this pulling on any of these things. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to cut the first one. I'm going to start in the center here. I already have marks, so I measured out. I have a mark here in the beginning, down here in the beginning, and then they have marks under each of here, and then they have marks at the halfway point on the sidewalk as to where these all go. So I'm just going to cut these, and all I'm going to do is, I'm going to use my cutting shears here, and I'm going to cut the center ones. So one goes right here. I'm going to cut it just higher than, and then we're going to take some more CA. So that's the idea of the look we're going for, just like that. So we have the poles in here, and I'm just going to continue along, and we'll come back, and I'll show you what that looks like, all lit up and all put together. So let's get it done. All right, so here's the finished thing. Now you'll notice a little bit of warp in the sidewalk, and that's something I really can't do anything about. I'll fix that when we install it onto the layout. But this is the finished look of the whole thing. All the poles are in. And then there's one thing I haven't shown you yet. Let me flip this way a little bit more. Now, if you've ever looked up Saul Goodman office online, there's something on here that's missing. And it's a little small, and I couldn't find just the right size, but I think this will work, and it'll prove my point. This goes right here, like that. And then we have the Statue of Liberty that sits on top of there. And that's it. That'll be all done. Now it's time to get this thing installed on the layout, build the parking lot, everything that's going to go in the front of this, and that's it. I think it came out pretty good. I'm very happy with it. And we'll go down one more time. So that's going to be it. That's it for this series on building a strip mall. I hope you learned something. I did. I learned quite a bit doing this. So, you know, we're going to call this series done. If you're just finding me for the first time, thanks for sticking with it and watching the video. And I hope you'll go back, subscribe, and go back and watch, you know, some of the other series that I've done. Love to have you along for the ride. If you'd like to see more of my layout and you haven't done yet, you can go to my website. It's mikestrains.wordpress.com. There you can see more pictures of my layout and other things I've done. So, until next time, happy modeling.